embarrassing to admit. I refletched my arrows like 2 weeks ago. And I changed the color of the vanes. I actually changed the vanes as well. I changed the heat vanes. They're a little bit lower profile. And I don't know, I just wanted to switch it up from the blazers. I also saw someone shooting blazers out of their bow. And I've never really stood down, or not downrange, but beside somebody when they're shooting blazers, but they are freaking loud. I mean, all the way to the target. So, and louder than like I would think would be acceptable from a bow. I mean, you could hear them all the way down, going all the way down to the end of the range, which I don't think is something that you can necessarily hear or key in on when you're shooting them yourself. When you're off to the side, you can hear it. But anyways, I changed my vanes, and I noticed afterwards that before my vanes were white and then two green on the side. The cock vane was white and the other vanes were green. And I had an issue like probably a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, with rest clearance. And it was leaving green residue on my rest. So I messed with it a little bit. And I thought it was fixed. And that was around the time that I figured out that my broadheads were going like a foot off to the right at 25 yards, and it was wild. It was absolutely ridiculous. I couldn't believe it. I hit my garage once at 25 yards, and it was nuts. But anyways, I thought I had fixed it, and I had like, you know, wiped off my rest a little bit, but it's not something that I keyed in on until I changed the color of my vanes 2 weeks ago. That my rest started turning pink or red or whatever this color is. And that's when I really figured out that this was still an issue. And not only that, it was kind of a bad one. So as you can see, my rest, I don't know if you can see this. Okay, there's my rest. Hopefully it's in focus. Hopefully you can see, but there's a lot of green stuff on the rest. Okay, and that's when it's laying down. And then in the up position, obviously, but this comes, when you fire it, it comes down, and that's when the green part of the vanes is rubbing off of that. That's been on there for a while, and I don't really want to, not that I don't want to, but this is plastic, so I don't know what chemicals are going to do to it, whether it eat it away or whatever like that. So I just kind of like rub off the arms. And so I just kind of kept that green residue there. It's been there forever, like a year and a half. But so the actual forks, this side of the forks was turning pink, and that's when I knew I had an issue. And that might actually be the key to the reason why my broadheads, every once in a while, and by every once in a while I mean half the time, will veer off to the right. That may be the issue, because when you think about it, when you are dealing with your when you're dealing with a field tip, these provide the stability, and if this drags off of the rest, you're fine, because it'll just restabilize and then go down towards the target. It'll restabilize pretty quickly, no problem. But if you put a broadhead on here, especially a fixed blade, that becomes a wing or a sail as well, and that's when you'll get this. If it bangs off the rest, this is gonna, if it hits the rest, back here, this is going to make your arrow sail down to the right. Down and to the right, or up and to the right, whatever it is. It's going to go off to the right, which is what it was doing. So I think that was the issue that I've been having for a really, really long time. Now here's what happened. Here's what I figured out when I started actually looking at my rest and saw the pink on there, and I was like, this isn't good. So the rest goes side to side, but it also goes up and down, and you can tune it that way. There are different schools of thought about whether you should tune your rest or yoke tune, especially on a Hoyt. You can yoke tune. I don't have a bow press. That is something that I'm interested in, but right now, with my mechanical knowledge of bows, which is not really all what it should be, especially for someone who is mechanically inclined like me, messing with your bow and a bow press without having an actual like class or somebody teach you about it could be even worse than not doing anything about it. You could really mess up a bow that way, and I just don't want to do that. I want to actually get training on how to tune a bow, especially the different brands of bows, since they all have different tuning methods. They all work differently and stuff like that. Anyways, I don't have a bow press, so I have always just taken to a pro shop or moved the rest ever so slightly. Now, when I was having these broadhead issues, that's when I started moving my rest, and I started moving it up and down and left and right, and I had a couple of issues that compounded the problems that I was having. I was not gripping the bow properly, and I had some vein contact with the actual forks of the rest. Those compounded and made it very difficult to determine what I was doing wrong, what was going wrong, and why the broadheads were veering off to the right so catastrophically. I have pretty much fixed my grip. I've got a much more natural grip that I don't have to think about, and that's very relaxed and stuff like that. And I think it works for me very, very well. That just left the rest. And if I hadn't have switched vanes, I really wouldn't have noticed it, but I did. And then I started looking at my rest, and I figured out that when this rest comes down after you shoot it, it obviously is supposed to lay flat. That gives the arrow that gives the vane clearance, and it supports it all the way up to when the vanes pass by. So what was happening was, I think my rest was too low, which meant the forks were too high. That doesn't make any sense right now, but I'm going to demonstrate why. So this rest works on that action right there. So what was happening, because this was too low, it was actually causing the forks to hit this portion of this little pad right here, this shelf, and that meant that the forks were ever so slightly pointed up like that, which means that you have less clearance. It gets to a point where the lower you go, the less clearance those forks are going to have to let the vanes pass by. Okay, I let the train go by. So those forks, because it was hitting the shelf, the end of those forks were actually higher than they should be. They were not flat at a 90-degree angle. They were sort of cocked up a little bit. And that's exactly where the pink was rubbing, or the vanes were rubbing off on. So that's what was turning pink. And it's been like that for probably a year and a half or something like that. I did not go hunting last year because I, number one, didn't have time, and number two, that's when I moved to Arizona here, and the non-resident rate was like $350 for an over-the-counter mule deer tag. I don't even want to know what it was for elk. And you're not eligible to become a resident until you've lived there for at least 6 months, which now I have. So now I'm planning my fall hunts. It's going to be a completely different experience. I don't know. It's going to be fun for me, anyways. I may not get anything, but a lot of learning, and it's going to be an interesting experience, especially coming from whitetail woods to now completely wide open spot and stock. So, anyways, it's been like that for a long time, and I wouldn't have known that, or I wouldn't have been able to fix that had I not changed vane colors. I've shot this for like 2 weeks, and I have not seen any pink pop up on these forks. And the really good thing about this is that when I raised, so the thing that I had to do to fix that was actually raise the rest up a little bit, so that those forks would come down to a 90-degree angle and they wouldn't hit that shelf. So that had me a little worried, but I went out to a range where I was able to use a rangefinder to get exact distances and stuff like that, and I went to 20 yards, and obviously since the trough of the forks where the arrow sits on, that's higher, so it's going to impact higher, so you have to raise your sight up. So what I did was I went to 20 yards, dialed it in from there, moved my sight tape to where the where it was impacting at 20 yards and lined it up with 20 yards. Then I went out to 60, and it hit almost exactly in the center of the target. Even left and right was good. So that was absolutely amazing. Now I only have pretty much one test left to do. I've shot out to 56 a couple of times right now before I turn the camera on, and it's pretty good. I just have to screw a broadhead on there and see what's going on with that. See if it veers off to the right again, or whether it will hit broadly where my broadheads are. So that's my test for today. I only have one broadhead, and that's the 150 grain broadheads that go with my that my setup's shooting right now. I might switch to 125 just because those are way more available in like Cabela's or Sportsman's Warehouse and stuff like that. But I'm pretty happy with the 150. But then again, 125 are way more widely available. And if I don't have broadhead issues with fixed blades, I may be able to shoot fixed blades off the shelf at Sportsman's Warehouse or something like that, and get an impact that is desirable, because I really don't want to shoot mechanicals. I bought a couple of mechanicals from a pretty reputable company, and there's just no sharpness to them. There's nothing about them that is sharp. I could lick it 1,000 times and lick a piece of paper 1,000 times. That piece of paper would cut me more than that broadhead would. It's just, they are so dull out of the box, and I don't know, I just don't want to shoot mechanicals. I want to shoot the fixed blade. I want to do it right. And yeah, I really want to shoot mechanicals, or sorry, I really want to shoot broadheads. I do not want to shoot mechanicals. last ditch effort is to go to a bow shop and have this thing properly tuned to the way I am shooting right now. I've got extra strings, so if I were to go to a pro shop right now and get it redone, I have strings to take to them and just say, give me the works. Let's get this thing tuned and ready to go for broadheads. So let's shoot a broadhead to see if it's flying true. And I'm gonna do it at like 30 yards so that if I miss, the arrow won't destroy itself upon hitting rocks and stuff like that. So let's try it. Okay, here's how we're gonna do this. First, I'm just gonna start off at 30 yards. I feel like that's a pretty safe distance to start off at. And then I'm gonna shoot a broadhead in, see where it goes, field point after it, see how close they are. I'm gonna shoot that again, those two in succession again. And if there's no issues at all, I'm gonna step back. If there are issues, I will screw the broadhead on a different arrow. That could affect it, I don't know, but you know, if we still have off to the right, then I think to a bow shop it goes. To get tuned to me, but I'm hoping that this does it, so let's try it. All right, that rock right there is 30. This is a 150 grain Ozcut 2-blade broadhead. It is not sharp right now because it's been shot into the ground multiple times, but it is still structurally intact, so I'm expecting this to perform like it would if it was sharp. Interesting result. So we have a broadhead that is now completely fine left to right on the first try, but that's shooting like, I don't know, 6-7 inches high, whereas my other two are more or less pretty on. And if that's a little bit off, that's my fault, but that was not. That thing broke right in the dot, so I'm shooting a little bit high. So let's test that again, see what happens. Okay, let's go again. Okay. I don't know if you could tell from the video, but the result was pretty much exactly the same. Broadhead was, it's like 7 inches high. My second shot was gorgeous. And third shot, not so much. I was kind of shaky. I tried to take a deep breath in between. But that was definitely me, my third shot. But yeah, this is an issue, but at least it's like right down the center. So I'm gonna have to do a little bit more research on what to do if your broadhead is high. Would it make sense to raise the rest up or lower the rest? I would think it would make sense to lower the rest, but in doing so you'd have the same issues that I had before, where they'd strike the fork and then veer off to the right. But that would be something where I would have to raise my knock point. Your knock point might be a better bet. Messing with your knock point might be a better bet. But I don't have a bow press, so that would be, well, you wouldn't have to have a bow press for that, but let's go out to distance to see what happens. Because if it's an elevation issue, I can account for that. Train coming. Let's go out to distance. Let's go out to like 50 yards, see what happens. $50 on the dot. High and to the left. Not my best group, but we did group together. It's 94 degrees today in the Arizona desert. So right here's my broadhead, and then all these are my field points. I'm going to shoot that again to confirm. Okay, here's pretty much the last group of the day. This one I felt the best on. I felt like I was the steadiest, most consistent with my release, and we've got pretty much the same result as we've been having all day, which is a little bit more definitive. I think you can tell which my broadheads are, or which my broadhead is, and which my field points. Broadhead, field points. Anyways, that's at 50 yards, so it's slightly off to the right, although the real problem is the elevation, and that's, right now, that's as good as I can do on my field points. So nothing outside of 40 yards for me in terms of anything that I'm going to shoot, which is fine. Know your limitations of what you are right now. And right now I have not been consistent enough on shooting to go outside of 40 yards in terms of what I would go out to hunt. So, but anyways, I'm going to go back there and sort of do a synopsis of the day. B-22 Ospreys. No idea if I got those on camera. Anyways, yeah, I don't know if I'm very consistent right now with my shooting to be able to judge where my broadhead is impacting compared to my field points. I know it's off, but it's still nowhere even close to being as far off as it used to be. So that's a good sign. And maybe something where I just have to shoot at long range a little bit more. Because man, holding that thing steady at long range is really, really difficult. Yeah, I may save this for another day. I may redo this another day, do a little bit more research on what to do. I mean, shooting only 6 inches high at 50 yards or something like that, that's not bad compared to what it was, which was 1.5 feet off to the right at like 30 yards, a foot off to the right at 20 yards. It was really, really bad. So yeah, I don't know. I think a little bit more research is in order. I know that switching the broadhead onto a different arrow made it basically do the exact same thing, where my broadhead is generally 6 inches higher or something like that than my field tips. So if we think about this, if broadhead is affecting flight and it's going high, that means that the rest needs to come down a little bit, or the knock point needs to come up a little bit in order for my broadheads to group with my field points. That would be the prevailing thought. Because theoretically your broadhead and your vane should be lined up exactly the same, because then it'll go straight. And if your broadhead is slightly cocked up a little bit, then that's what's going to cause it to basically catch the wind and get it to fly up and go high like that. So, oh well. I'm just going to have to do a little bit more research, and I may just have to go spend the $90 to $100 to get this thing tuned up the way I want it to. I also think I need to shorten my draw length a little bit. Just a hunch. I'm feeling a little bit stretched out, like my anchor is all the way back here, and I kind of want it to be more up here, and it's kind of back here a little bit more. I don't know. I'm gonna go home and do a little bit more internet research, and then try this again on another day. But this is much better than it was. I wouldn't have dared to come out here at 50 yards like a month and a half ago. I just wouldn't have done it, because my arrow, I could have aimed all the way on the left side of the target and my arrow would hit all the way on the right side of the target with a broadhead on it. So this is much better. So anyways, that's video number 1 for today. So I'm gonna do 3 videos today, I think. So you're gonna see me in the same clothes for the next 2 videos after this one. Anyways, I'll see you next time with some info about this thing. Hopefully it is in focus. It is the B3 tangent. I will see you next time.